Sunny Prescott, Arizona. Today, folks, we're going to take a tour of the factory of Tesoro Electronics. We have a couple of gentlemen here. They're going to help us with the tour. They're also going to give us some information on how and where you use metal detectors, what you find with them, and some of the science on metal detectors, how they work and why they work. I'd like to introduce a couple of the gentlemen here that are going to help us with the tour and also give us some of the science today. First,
James Gifford. I'm the Vice President of Tesoro Electronics, and I'm also in charge of marketing.
all right, and
Vince Gifford. I'm also Vice President here, and I'm in charge of engineering.
all right, gentlemen. Well, I'm looking forward to this tour and what we're going to learn today on today's show. So let's go on inside.
Let's go.
First stop on the tour is where they actually wind their coils. Maybe you can tell us how this works.
Well, we've got a machine here set up that is a stepper motor, has a program memory. We just take the wire, run it over, get it ready to start, hit the start button, and it actually knows exactly how many winds to put on and at what speed, so the coils have consistency.
All right, now I noticed this little gurgling machine here. What does this do?
This is actually a little spot that has alcohol in it, and it's putting alcohol on the wire, which wets the glue. That's how the coil actually forms.
So there's a glue on the wire then?
Glue on the wire, yep.
So when it winds together like that, it kind of sticks together then.
It'll come off as one solid piece.
Okay, and what's the next step after this?
The next step after this is we'll take it off here. It'll be wet with the alcohol, and we'll run it into an oven to dry it. Get all that alcohol out of the coil.
Well, that was pretty quick. I guess you could make quite a few of these in a day, huh?
That's the idea.
All right. Well, I guess we'll just take a look at this the oven and see what the next step looks like. Okay, so the next step of the process is baking these coils. Is that right?
That's correct. What we do is we use this oven here to bake out the alcohol and make sure that the glue gets firm on all of the windings. Very simple process. Just open them up.
Put the coils in and bake them up. How long do you have to leave them in there?
Somewhere about 20 to 30 minutes.
Okay, so that doesn't take long at all.
Not very long at all.
All right. And once you get the coils baked, then what, they go into the plastic housings?
At that point, they'll go into the housings, and then they'll get wired.
They get put into the housings, and then they get tested, and then you put the epoxy on them.
Correct.
And then the next process is putting the metal detectors together, huh?
That is correct.
Well, maybe we'll go downstairs and take a look at that process.
Good. Let's go down.
All right. Well, James, this is the main part of your factory here. Maybe you can just give us a little background on the company, how many different types of machines you make?
Well, we make about 9 different detectors here domestically. We also make a couple of different private labels for our UK and European guys. We really kind of differentiate our detectors based on the features that they have. We try to match the features that the detector has to the needs of the metal detectorist. For an example, a beginner doesn't need a high gain, big knob type of detector. What they're looking for is something that's simple, and that's where we have the compadre. When you get into gold prospecting, those guys want high gain. They're looking for very small targets. They're going to want some kind of discrimination so they can knock out the iron. And also in our Lobo, we have what's called an automatic ground balance, which knocks out the mineralization effects and allows us to get the best depth and sensitivity.
How many dealers do you have around the country and I guess around the world?
We have about 350 dealers here in the United States and in Canada. I have 5 different distributors on the European continent. I have 1 in Moscow and 1 in Australia.
Well, I guess there's treasure to be found all around the world.
Everywhere.
Well, I think now we want to talk about the science of metal detecting, and we're going to move around over here. We're going to talk to Vince, and I think the first thing we want to talk about is actually what kind of technology goes into these coils.
Well, the basic coil starts off with windings here. You have a transmit on the outside and a receive on the inside. Then those windings are basically tuned and potted, and then we do a final coat so you see what you have as a production coil.
So there's a signal that comes out of the outer coil and then receives back into the inner coil. Is that how that works?
That's correct.
Okay, and maybe we can kind of see a graphical demonstration of how that works on this machine right here.
Well, the big sinusoid that you see here is actually the transmit coming out from the outside.
Okay.
And the little guy is the balance. And if you watch the little guy, you'll see on iron, for example, that we get a signal that looks like this. Whereas a quarter...
It's a totally different signal.
It's a totally different signal. you have two components, phase and amplitude. Amplitude is how big it is. The phase is where the peak is coming out. So this gets us our discrimination based on phase, where this is a nickel and a quarter's over here.
So the electronics in the machine itself will discriminate between where the peaks are in those different waves and say, okay, this is a quarter, or this is a dime, or this is a nickel. All right, well, that's really interesting. Maybe we can see a few more things. I have my my ring here. I'm going to pull off and see what that looks like on that machine there. So I guess that would be one that you wouldn't want to discriminate out, right? So it kind of goes right up this line right here.
Right, if we get it here, you can see that it's peaking right about that point.
Okay.
And again, if we go back and look, you'll see that a nickel is close, but a little different.
A little different.
And a quarter is in that same neighborhood.
In the same neighborhood.
And then this is actually a piece of ferrite that we use for ground effects, and you can see that the ground is almost in phase with the transmit.
Okay, so explain to me how you ground balance a machine.
When you get in ground effects, you're looking to add half of what's going up with half of what's going down and come up with a zero.
I see.
That's
okay.
actually the balancing portion of it. It lets you eliminate this and still see this.